Ernest Hemingway was a man of adventure. He served in World War I and was a war correspondent for many other wars, such as the Spanish Civil War and World War II. Hemingway was born July 21, 1899, in Oak Park, Illinois. His mother, Grace, was a highly devoted Catholic, and until Ernest was 6, she dressed him as a girl. His father, Clarence, was an outdoorsman, which rubbed off on Ernest. In the summers, the family would head off to their summer cabin in Michigan, where Ernest enjoyed fishing and hunting among other activities. In high school, Hemingway played sports and wrote for his high school newspaper, Trapeze and Tabula. He opted to not go to college and served in World War I. He failed the vision test and instead became an Italian ambulance driver on the Italian front. He was injured and sent home. He began working for the Toronto Star and married his first wife, Hadley Richardson. The two moved to Paris, where Hemingway became part of the Lost Generation. Notorious artists such as F. Scott Fitzgerald and Pablo Picasso were also involved in it. In 1923, Hemingway's first son, John, was born. By the time Hemingway's first novel, The Sun Also Rises, was published, he had divorced Richardson and married his second wife, Pauline Pfeiffer. Hemingway and Pfeiffer moved to Florida by 1928, and he had his second son, Patrick, and soon after, Gregory. Hemingway was sent to report on the Spanish Civil War, where he met journalist Martha Gellhorn. Pfeiffer and Hemingway would soon divorce, and Hemingway married Gellhorn in 1940. Their marriage did not last long, as Hemingway met his fourth and final wife, Maria Walsh, in 1946. Hemingway traveled as a war correspondent for World War II, where he witnessed the D-Day landing and Geneva Convention. Following the war, Hemingway traveled to England. During his trip, he met 18-year-old Adriana Ivanchik, whom he became infatuated with. This relationship inspired his 1950 novel, Across the River and Into the Trees. The novel was very poor received and highly criticized. By 1951, Hemingway published The Old Man and the Sea, which he considers his best novel ever. The novel helped him win the Pulitzer Prize and the Nobel Prize for Literature. After the publishing of The Old Man and the Sea, Hemingway was tumulted with health problems, and in 1961 he committed suicide in Ketchum, Idaho. In 1926, Ernest Hemingway published his first novel, The Sun Also Rises. In the novel, a war veteran, Jake, and his group of expatriates head off to the festival in Pamplona. He is accompanied by Robert Kahn, a Jew, Lady Brett, and her fiancé Mike, and his friend from the war, Bill. Jake and Lady Brett share a mutual relationship, but they cannot be together due to Jake being injured during the war. Robert Kahn falls in love with Brett and will not stop following her around, which angers Mike, her fiancé. The festival kicks off with a bullfight where the 19-year-old bullfighter, Pedro, happens to be at. Brett falls in love with the bullfighter, 15 years her junior. The gang meets up at a restaurant with Pedro, and Brett demands that Jake introduces her to the young bullfighter, with whom she later spends the night with. Mike and Kahn, on the other hand, get in a fight over Brett, who at this point is not much interested in any of them. The violence does not stop there, as later Kahn demands to know where Brett is, and none of the men know. Kahn, being a boxer, beats up Mike and Jake, and then goes back to his bedroom and cries. Kahn leaves the next morning, and the group of expatriates find out he also beat up Pedro. The fiesta ends the next day as Pedro kills a bull, cuts off his ear, and gives it to Brett as a profession of his love towards her. Brett goes to Madrid with Pedro, and the other three men go their separate ways. Jake was planning to spend a quiet few days in San Sebastian, but gets a message from Brett saying she needs him to come to Madrid quickly. He arrives the same day to learn that she left Pedro in fear that she would ruin his career. She tells Jake she wants to be with Mike as the two leave Madrid. While the novel is considered one of his greatest novels, it did not win him any literary awards. It did, however, help introduce him to the literary world. In 1952, The Old Man and the Sea was published. This was the last Hemingway novel published while he was alive. In the novel, an old fisherman has had an unlucky streak, not being able to catch a fish in 84 days. There is a young boy, Manolin, who used to fish with the old man, but due to his unlucky streak is no longer allowed to. The old man sails deep into the sea in an effort to finally catch the fish. Almost immediately he hooks a fish. However, he cannot seem to reel it in. For 3 days, the old man, Santiago, struggles to reel the monster of a fish in. He finally kills it with the thrust of his harpoon and reels it in. However, the fish left behind a stream of blood which attracts sharks. Sharks quickly begin attacking, trying to eat the fish, a marlin. The tired old man fights them all off, but as more and more appear, he finds he has no more strength. The sharks devour the fish that the old man fought for, and when he arrived at shore, simply goes to bed. He believes the sharks devouring the fish is his punishment for killing such a magnificent creature. The next morning, tourists find the skeleton of the fish and have no idea of the struggle the poor old man went through. Madeline, on the other hand, is ecstatic that the old man is home, and the two promise each other that they will fish as partners forevermore. The novel helped secure Hemingway the Pulitzer Prize and Nobel Prize, which would forever mark his place in the literary world.